Hello, students of CPI 101. My name is Keegan O'Hare, and I will be presenting to you today on clinical informatics. Your first question that you might be asking is, what is clinical informatics? So clinical informatics focuses on anything that has to do with healthcare and information, and how to optimize and improve that information to get better results, whether that's through safe surgery practices, redesigning user interfaces, or um, patient-doctor interactions and how to make those run more smoothly, optimizing the processes. So I decided to focus on what technologies are needed to achieve those outcomes, or what technologies a person who's in healthcare or clinical informatics rather would use in order to achieve those things. The first is Snagit. And at first, a lot of you may have heard of Snagit. It's a screen capturing software used to capture user interfaces and improve them based on feedbacks from doctors and patients and even nurses. Uh, so the nice Snagit is a screen capturing software, but it's a screen capturing software a little bit on steroids because you can do screen captures, but you can also do recording screen captures. So you can record a doctor going through an interface and maybe see where he stumbles up or what's happening, or maybe a tutorial on how to properly go through that user interface. An example of when screenshots are used in healthcare is taking screenshots of existing healthcare records and with a text box next to them. I know that seems very elementary, but some of the most complex revolutionary solutions that they come up with in medicine are very elementary, as you'll come to find out as I present further. So to show the changes that they would make. Okay, Adobe Photoshop is something that is used, but used sparingly. It's used to make subtle changes to user interfaces. This is basically if we say that like we just want to see what it looks like before we actually design a new user interface, we can do kind of a rough mock-up in Photoshop before we move to Adobe Illustrator, which is the main design tool for clinical informatics. It's used to create new icons, new displays for information to optimize usability and the end user experience. You'll notice that that's a theme throughout clinical informatics, that we're always looking to improve the end user experience. If the doctors can spend less time or have a more enjoyable experience, that's great. An example of where Adobe Illustrator has been used in clinical informatics is an electronic ER view board. So what that is when you go into the ER, there's the boards that the doctors and the nurses see that have basic patient information on them, and how to redesign those to make them have icons that are more gentle on the eyes, or the most important information pops. For example, we should have allergy information on the very top of the screen. Something basic like that, so that the doctors know that if I'm allergic to penicillin, they're not going to prescribe me a penicillin derivative for my infection. Um, Something interesting to think about. Visio. Visio is another tool that's crucial to clinical informatics. It's useful for flowcharts and process flow maps. Simple shapes used to understand complex topics. For example, the person I interviewed about clinical informatics, who gave me all this information, said that she used it to change the menu hierarchy and to show how that would work based on a new menu hierarchy that once it was redesigned. Again, going back to the redesign, the end user ability. If you're big on usability, then clinical informatics is a very good field for you to get into. So as you can see here on my presentation, this is an example of what Visio actually looks like. I personally have never used Visio, so I was a little unsure when I was conducting my interview to do this presentation on what it really entailed. So this is an example of how it looks like. This is an example of how a network might be set up, computers to servers and to printers and such. This is just gives you a general idea of what Visio looks like. Okay, and PowerPoint and Excel. Now, when the person I was interviewing told me this, I was like, I can't include that in my presentation. Everyone knows about PowerPoint and Excel. But the thing about that is that gathering useful data is meaningless if you cannot share it and make meaningful observations out of it. And Excel and PowerPoint give you those tools. In Excel, you can crunch numbers, you can look at data and say, hey, this is, the mean time to go through this form. How do we reduce the mean time to go through patient form? Or how do we reduce the mean ER wait time? And you can look at all the ER wait times, get the mean, the standard deviation, when it's high, when it's low, and then we can look at things like why is it lower during these times? Now, maybe those times are just lower traffic times, or maybe we're doing something better, and we look at the data and we can figure that out using Excel. PowerPoint, as we can all tell right now, I'm using PowerPoint to convey information. Now, when I make this grand discovery in Excel or this grand usability change in Illustrator, or I get a good screenshot of what I want to change in Snagit, I have to have some place to pool all this information and put it together. And the perfect tool for that is PowerPoint. So I can present it to the necessary groups, because as you'll find out if you get into clinical informatics, you work with doctors, you work with nurses, you work with finance, you work with the business people. It's a very broad field. I don't want to say broad, that's the wrong word. It's a very diverse field of people who you'll interact with. So you want to be able to present all that information, and there's no better tool for that than PowerPoint. So why should you care about clinical informatics? Well, here's why. A lot of us are going to college so we can make a few extra dollars. With a bachelor's degree in informatics, average starting salary is $54,000. Pretty good, not bad. Definitely can live on it. A master's in the non-healthcare informatics, informatics master's is $75,200. So that just means that you get a master's in generic informatics. I got these stats from Indiana University, those two first stats, and for the third stat, it's for clinical informatics starting with a master's. 82 to 92,000. Now that's a big jump. Now, if we look at, the jump from bachelor's, it's enormous. But if we even look at the jump from a non-healthcare informatics degree to a healthcare informatics degree, it's still substantial. And that's because hospitals right now have archaic systems that they're trying to update so that they can make the patient flow better, so they can cure more people, diagnose quicker, and get more optimized outcomes. And they're willing to pay. Hospitals have a lot of money to pay. So if you're interested in money or you're interested in healthcare, I strongly encourage you to dive deeper into this topic. That's pretty much it for my presentation on healthcare informatics. I apologize for my microphone if you've noticed any issues. This is the third microphone that I'm trying for this presentation, and hopefully it will work out. Thank you for listening to me, and hopefully you learned at least one thing about clinical informatics. That is it. Have a nice day.